Good morning and welcome to Legacy After the Locker Room. I'm your host, Kayla Bradham, here today with professional basketball player, mental health expert, Malcolm Lemmons. Good morning, Malcolm.
Good morning, Kayla. You make me sound a lot cooler than I am.
You know, you're a pretty cool guy. I followed you on LinkedIn for a long time, and I just absolutely adore the work that you're doing in the mental health space. You've written a couple of books, and you're really making a difference with Athletes Unheard. So I'm really grateful and thankful and blessed to have you as our guest today.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Malcolm, do us a favor. Professional basketball player. So, little boy, big dreams. Tell us how you got into professional basketball.
Yeah, for sure. So, I grew up like a lot of other kids in the inner city, wanting to chase this dream of becoming a professional athlete. All of my friends were athletes and wanting to achieve that dream. And so I didn't really start taking it seriously probably until I got to high school. Up until that point, basketball was really more so a way for me to kind of escape some of the things that I was going through as a child, being, coming from a single parent household, having to move around a lot. So it was really my escape. But once I got to high school, I really saw how competitive basketball was. And that inspired me to even want to chase that dream further. So, had the opportunity to go to a highly prestigious Catholic high school called Gonzaga and just competed at a very high level right off the bat, played against guys such as Quinn Cook, who, won 2 championships in the NBA, Victor Oladipo, had teammates who played at Duke, Princeton, University of Richmond, you name it. It was high level basketball every single night. And that really, encouraged me to up my game. So I put all my time, effort, and attention into basketball in high school, playing year round. And that really afforded me the opportunity to get a Division I scholarship to Niagara University. And went there, had a lot of ups and downs, still kept that focus on becoming a pro. And ultimately, I ended up transferring my senior year of college, which is something that you don't see a lot of athletes doing, but kind of took a leap of faith, felt like I needed a fresh start. And the opportunity to go to a school called Cal State San Marcos kind of came out of nowhere. And never heard of the school before, a little small NAIA school in San Diego, California. So definitely a good weather change. And I went out there and I had the best year I ever had playing basketball. Was a NAIA All-American, Defensive Player of the Year. We did incredibly well as a team. And that gave me the opportunity to go play overseas. And so achieved that dream when I, following graduation, got an opportunity to go play overseas in Japan, and more ups and downs as, the nature of athletics is. But an incredible experience just getting, a chance to experience a different culture and, get paid to do something that I love and that I always wanted to do. And walked away from the game in 2017, which is another story within itself. But incredibly blessed and just to have that opportunity to pursue my lifelong dream and to get a chance to play at the highest level. And basketball has taught me so much about life that I carry over to everything that I'm doing today.
And that's definitely where we're going to spend the greater part of our time on this show, is talking about the things that you're doing today. But Malcolm, first question. Grew up in a single family home in the inner city. Where's your hometown?
Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
I should have told you that. I should have said that.
No, I think it's great because I grew up in a single parent home in a small town. And, I can remember taking a baseball. So I'm an only child in a single parent home. And I would take my baseball, I'd throw it up against the garage, and it would kind of slowly roll back to me. I mean, there's challenges growing up in a single parent home. Like, I never had a dad who went outside and threw a ball with me, right? I didn't have brothers and sisters to play team sports. Now I'm a single parent in Milwaukee. I'm blessed. I have 8 kids. My kids have, their own soccer team, volleyball team, whatever. But there are challenges, number one, to growing up in a single parent home. Greater challenges still growing up in the inner city. I live in the city proper of Milwaukee, so I get it. I just want to take just a second and ask you, what's your advice to kids who are living maybe with mom or dad or grandma or in the foster care system or whatever? What is your advice to those kids who want to be pro athletes?
That's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked this question before. I was fortunate because I had an older brother, but we were about 4 years apart. So, when I was going into high school, he was going to college, and, we're really close now, but it wasn't really like that back then. And so in some aspects, I did feel like an only child, or that I didn't really have much guidance on how to kind of pursue this dream that I wanted to reach. So I would tell any kid that's kind of facing that similar circumstance to understand that, while you might be feeling alone and that you don't have somebody to lean on, that all of this adversity that you might be feeling and this uncertainty about your future, or someone that you can lean on to mentor you or help you through it, is ultimately making you a more capable person going forward. That, that experience of having to navigate or feeling like you're navigating life alone is preparing you for what life is really about, because you get out into the real world. While you might have mentors and people to help you, a lot of it you're just kind of trying to figure out on your own, and it's you following your heart, following your gut, and what feels right. So I think learning that at a young age and having to figure out a lot of situations on my own just prepared me to be a more capable and competent adult in a lot of circumstances, because now I feel like I'm able to make hard decisions on my own, or to do things in spite of fear. And so having that bravery, that courage at a young age, it just prepares you for life. So I think that I would just tell kids to just keep going. You might feel that adversity, but just keep fighting through it.
And that response really led me into my next question. So I'm going to thank you for that. But transferring as a college senior, that really had to be gut instinct, trust yourself, no fear, dealing with adversity. Were there any challenges that you didn't expect that came with that transfer, or was it all just like easy peasy, George and Wheezy, this is fine?
I think for me, I had been through so much adversity up until that point. Even, looking back in high school, I got cut as a sophomore, trying to make the varsity team. And that almost destroyed my dreams. I almost quit playing basketball at that point. So I had always told myself from that point on, from that sophomore season, that I wasn't going to let anything deter me from achieving that dream. And so everything that I went through at Niagara, from getting injured to getting sick my sophomore year, missing half of the season, to butting heads with the coaches and not really agreeing on a lot of different things. And so me transferring was just another roadblock, but it was my tunnel vision was so set on becoming a professional athlete that I didn't care if I had to go across the country to a school that I never heard of, to a coaching staff that I never heard of, to play with players that I had no idea what they were going to be like. And so I kind of put all my eggs in this basket. My faith was just on the table. And I said, if this is what is going to lead me to that dream, then this is what I'm going to do. And so it was a lot of faith involved in that process, but there was no hesitancy on me, going out there and just doing what I do best, which was play basketball, and doing that at the highest level possible. So I just had faith that if I put in the work every single day and got the extra shots in and do what I needed to do on a daily basis, that we were going to be successful as a team, and I was going to be successful as an individual athlete and have that opportunity once I left school.
So I love that. And interestingly enough, we had a Major League Baseball veteran, Jerry Spradlin, on the show a couple of weeks ago. And he has a very similar story. He was cut in high school, went to play 18 years in Major League Baseball, 20 years as a coach, I think like 6 different MLB teams, just really, really kept putting it out there, kept going hard, digging in, wouldn't quit, wouldn't give up. But he was dropped by his high school coach. So what a message to any parent or athlete who might be listening, to say, you know what, your high school team does not determine your destiny as an adult. So if you don't quit, you'll be successful. That's Yolanda Moore from the WNBA's quote. And I'm just going to borrow her thing and say, if you don't quit, you will be successful. So Malcolm, thank you for that inspiring story, just because I think it's encouraging, and we need to hear that high school sports are not everything when it comes to a pro career. Tell us about your time in Japan. What was your favorite experience there?
Oh man, that's a good question. I would probably say the people are amazing. I had no expectations going over there, but I met some of the kindest, warmest people in Japan, and they're very shy people, but they're loyal. They're friendly once you get to know them, and it was just an amazing experience being over there, and completely different, obviously, from American lifestyle. So it was a huge culture shock, but I learned to fall in love with their culture and learned a lot it made me more appreciative of, what we have here in America. So I think that's the great thing about living in other countries, or at least just traveling in general, is that it opens your mind to other people's perspectives of the world. And it makes you more thankful for what you do have, because, everything over there was smaller. I had a tiny, probably like a 500 square foot loft. And when I played my second year in Tokyo, and it was just a humbling experience. So I would say, from multiple different perspectives, it just made me more grateful for what I do have here. And I just absolutely love Japan. I tell people all the time, if I had the opportunity to go back, I'd go in a heartbeat.
That's fantastic. So again, I just want to remind our listeners, this is the legacy after the locker room. My name is Kayla Bradham, and I'm here today with professional basketball player, mental health expert, Malcolm Lemmons. Malcolm, let's switch gears a little bit to post-career. What did you do after Japan?
Yeah, so I actually had an opportunity to go play in Morocco my third year. And then, to backtrack a little bit, in between my first and second year playing overseas, I had actually came back home early, and it was the first time that I was without basketball. So I was kind of like in this limbo space of like not knowing where my life was going to go, still wanting to pursue this dream, but I had to get a job to support myself, and I actually ended up working several jobs. I worked in retail, I worked security, I did Uber. So all these different things, but I knew that I didn't want that to be my future. I didn't want those career opportunities to be the thing that I did going forward when basketball was officially over. And so that was the first time I kind of took a step back and started to think about life after basketball. I was fortunate to get another opportunity to go play in Japan that second season, and came in the middle of the season, and we had about a month-long break where we were just practicing, no games. And so I had a lot of time on my hands, and it led me to a period where I was just writing, because I had time, and I didn't have Wi-Fi. And so I just had a computer, and I thought about my life experiences. I thought about everything that I went through to become a professional athlete. And it was me just journaling, more or less. And so to fast forward, I came back home, that ended up publishing a book, which was something I never thought I would do. But I tell people all the time, that was the beginning of my transition, because I started to see myself outside of being an athlete and some of the things that I could do besides shoot a basketball. And so going into that third season, I had a deal to go to Morocco, had already published my book, had a couple of different media opportunities coming in. And I was all set to go. And 2 days before my flight was taking off, the team basically told me they didn't want me anymore. They wanted a big man. And, at that point, my heart, kind of wasn't in the game anymore. And so December of 2017, I kind of, made the decision to, hang the jersey up and pursue things outside of basketball. So that was kind of, what led me to retiring. And even though I didn't really have a concrete game plan, I had somewhat of an idea of the things that I wanted to pursue outside of basketball. And I thought like that was the opportunity that I should pursue over trying to continuously play overseas.
And I think you're bringing up something that's vitally important. And I first heard this from Gilbert Brown. He said, one of the hardest things of leaving the pro athlete space is nobody's cheering for you when you take out the garbage.
Right.
And so it's this transition period. So, Malcolm, my first question for you is your advice for athletes while they're in the pros, preparing to transition after retirement. Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, depending on what sport you play or what level you're playing at, is to leverage your platform as an athlete, because when you have that spotlight on you, there's people who want to, take meetings with you, to have conversations with you, to be around you. And it's really to kind of strike while the iron is hot type thing. And so I would say that utilizing those relationships and building solid relationships that are going to be a value add to both ends is incredibly important for athletes to understand before they transition. I think the athletes of today kind of understand that and are really kind of utilizing their platform, their voices to speak out and to do things that they're passionate about outside of sports, but also to build those relationships that are going to help them going forward. So I would say two things, like build those relationships, but also start to explore what you're passionate about, what your interests are outside of your sport, so that you're more prepared to make that transition into step into your next career a little more seamlessly than you would if you didn't understand yourself.
That's fabulous. And for you, that meant writing not only one, but actually two books. I'd like to talk about those, and also building Athletes Unheard and really getting into the mental health space for athletes. So let's start with the two books that you wrote. The book that you wrote while you were in Japan is called
Lessons from the Game.
Tell us about that.
So as I said before, it was really kind of an accumulation of, everything that I had went through as an athlete to become a professional, and also the key lessons that I took away from sports. I think, playing any sport is just a platform to get to something else. And there's so many intangibles that athletes consciously or subconsciously gain from playing sports throughout their life, things such as time management and patience and work ethic, obviously, and teamwork, and all these different things that you don't understand that you're kind of adding to your skill set that are valuable in the workplace, in the professional world. And so I really wanted to impart some of those lessons on the next generation and get them to understand that you have to use the game. Don't let the game use you. Take everything you can from this opportunity that you have and leverage that in ways that's going to help you beyond the game. And so that was really what that first book was about. And I had no idea what would come from it or how it would sell or anything like that. But I just wanted to use my story and the things that I went through to help the next generation, or at least just one other athlete with their journey to becoming whoever they wanted to become.
That's powerful. And then you went on to write another book. Tell us about that one.
Yeah. So Impact Beyond the Game. That this book really kind of came because I started to notice how much an athlete's brand was playing a part in their success during and after their careers. And you see a lot of talk about name, image, and likeness. And this is something I was talking about probably in 2018. I wrote an article for the Huffington Post called it was, the pros and cons of paying student athletes. And that article got a lot of attention. I started to see that there was this trend that, these conversations that were being had around student athletes being able to monetize their brands. And no one back then knew what it would look like. We're in a different landscape now where these floodgates are about to open. But over the years, I really started to see how with social media and technology continuously evolving, just the amount of opportunities that athletes would have for branding, endorsement, getting involved in philanthropic endeavors and business ventures. And we see like all these mega athletes who are also entrepreneurs, investors, and et cetera. And so I wanted to, really just lay out the blueprint that shows any athlete, no matter if you're in high school or, the first man off the bench in the NBA, you have an opportunity, you have a brand, you have a reputation, and, you need to be controlling that narrative to really tell your story, put out your message, and to get your build a relationship with your fan base that allows you to have those opportunities, not only during your career, but afterwards. And that's really what Impact Beyond the Game is about. It's about showing athletes step by step, what a brand is, how do you build it, what opportunities are out there, et cetera, and really just laying the blueprint, the foundation for athletes to be successful beyond the game.
And Malcolm, I think that's so important. Obviously, Legacy After the Locker Room is powered by the Sports Philanthropy Network. The whole NIL debate is something that we're, trenched in ourselves here in the network. And where I think it becomes so vital and so interesting to me is we sort of live in a world where people think that professional athletes are kind of good for autograph signings, charity golf events, charitable dinners, and really that's about it. Maybe if they want a foundation, they talk to their agent. The agent puts together a binder and says, here you go, here's your foundation. And they end up with this binder like, what am I supposed to do with it? Right. You're really creating with that book an opportunity for them to really fulfill their destiny. And I'm going to say it my way, be the people God created them to be, that there's so much more to life after sports. So that's a book I'm really passionate about for all of my pro athlete friends and my amateur athlete friends. This is a book I would definitely recommend. So thank you for writing it.
Thank you.
You're right. What you're doing is garnering a lot of attention in the space about branding, marketing, and really using your image, your name, your likeness to do good. So Malcolm, thank you. Tell us about Athletes Unheard. Where did that come from?
So I've always, well, I shouldn't say always, but the past couple of years, mental health has been something that's been very, something I've been very passionate about. And in hindsight, looking at my childhood, as I said before, growing up in a single parent household, having to go through certain traumatic experiences, I saw the way it kind of was detrimental to my development, my mental health as an adult, and I actually started to experience severe anxiety once I retired from basketball. And so going through my own mental health struggles, but also seeing it kind of worsen during 2020 and then observing other athletes who were experiencing heightened levels of depression and anxiety and declining mental health because of COVID isolation and just experience the feelings and emotions they've never experienced before. I felt like, these conversations around mental health weren't really being had at a high level. And I felt like there needed to be a place where athletes can become more educated, but also become more inspired by, other athletes' stories and how they've, gotten to the other side of the fence. And so that's really kind of how Athletes Unheard happened. It was, me wanting to kind of learn from my own and figure out how I can improve my own mental health, but also creating an outlet for other athletes to do the same, to become more, to really remove the stigma and become, more comfortable and normalize these conversations around mental health. And so we're very, big on storytelling and creating a platform that allows athletes to just talk candidly, whether that's positive or negative stories around mental health, but also educating athletes through these stories about certain definitions and terminologies, because I think that contributes to the stigma is that we don't understand really what mental health is and what it's about. So we're very much in the early stages of the company, but I'm very excited about the future and think that these conversations around mental health and wellness will become more prevalent as we learn to navigate this new world and the people who are around athletes place more resources and support when it comes to that side of being an athlete.
And, just a couple of things come to my mind with some of the athletes that I work with, and that's the eating disorder aspect. It's the I have to be perfect aspect. Oftentimes there's an ADD, ADHD component. For example, in gymnastics, Marcia Frederick was one of our guests early on talking about all of the athlete abuse, the sexual abuse going on in gymnastics. I guess, I'm really curious, Malcolm. We see it, whether it's an individual or a team sport. We see the constraints and pressure on athletes, affecting so many areas of their mental health in order to win. And it's by necessity. But where is your vision for Athletes Unheard? What do you see 5 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, the vision is to ultimately make mental health, as important to athletes as physical health. We look at, they should be one and the same. They say 90% of sports is mental, yet majority of athletes put all their time into the physical side. So why are we not emphasizing the mental component of, what it takes to be an athlete at a high level? So we're really trying to get to a point where athletes see the two and two as the same. And I think that when you compare it to physical health, it's much more easier to understand and to be proactive about. I think there's such a reactive approach to mental health, and there needs to be more of a proactive standpoint. But as you compare the two, we don't wait for a physical illness to happen or for us to get injured, for us to take care of our bodies, for us to lift weights, for us to take ice baths after practice of the games. But when it comes to mental health, we don't take a proactive approach. We sit back and we wait for our mental health to decline, and we don't implement mental fitness tactics and strategies and daily meditation, mindfulness, all these different things that you can kind of put into your routine that can help you not only on the playing field, but off of it as well. So we're really just trying to get to a point where athletes are comfortable talking about mental health in any setting, and give them the support that they need that's going to help them perform at the best level possible in and out of sports.
And obviously for athletes, we're definitely taking it up a notch, right? But I think mental health is something that everybody can relate to. There's work stress, family stress, life stress, chronic stress, taking care of parents, children, you name it. So Malcolm, I just want to ask you your top 3 tips or tricks for just, on the day to day taking care of mental health. What would be your 3 best quick pieces of advice for anybody to follow?
I think everybody's different. But for me personally, as I started to do more research and understand what works for me, the first thing that I've tried to implement is meditation. And I didn't know how much it would impact my focus and just my how I approach each day. But I try to meditate at least a couple minutes every morning, and that's something I started doing back in the fall of 2020. That's been very important to my routine. Journaling is probably the next thing. So I'm a very, as I said before, very anxious person. I'm also an insomniac. So my mind is always racing. And so ending the day journaling, trying to get all my thoughts on the paper or just how my day what went well, what didn't, is very good for my headspace. So I've been journaling every single day since probably the end of 2019. So that's something that I do as well. And then physical activity is a must. I do something physically draining every single day, whether that's, taking a long walk or lifting for an hour, hour and a half, or running, what you name it, biking, anything that I can do that's going to drain me or, help me get my blood flowing from a physical level. I think that's very important to my routine as well. So those are probably the top things that I do. But as I said, everybody's different. So I think it's about trial and error and figuring out what works for you, what doesn't, and making sure that you implement that daily in order to, as I said before, perform at your highest capacity.
I love it because I think the things that you just spoke about, we know that very few people are going to become professional athletes, but the 3 things that you just said, they relate to anybody and they don't cost a ton of money. They don't require a coach or a trainer or a professional. Those are things that you can do with literally a $0 budget without seeing a professional. And I'm not negating the need for people to see professionals if they're struggling, but I like that those were 3 very easy, simple things that were starting points. So thank you for that. That was really cool. We are just about out of time. I do want to ask you to partner with me. We know that all athletes struggle with mental health, and Special Olympics is an organization that is very special to me. I've asked every guest on Legacy After the Locker Room to partner with me to send an autographed donation to support them. Malcolm, is that something that you're willing to do?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I think that, it is something that every athlete can relate to. So I want to say thank you for that. We are just about out of time, Malcolm. We have about 2 minutes left. I want to give you an opportunity to shout out the people that you want to shout out and also to give your final words of wisdom and really create an impact for our listeners.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity. Incredibly grateful. As far as words of wisdom, the best thing that I could tell anybody is to learn to fail forward, to understand that failure is a necessary part of success. It's a part of the process. And the quicker you learn to fail, the quicker you'll get to success. So I think getting comfortable with failure is one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give anybody with whatever you're trying to achieve, that whether that's trying to become a professional athlete or trying to start a business or do anything in life, learn to fail through it and be comfortable with that. As far as shout outs, got to give a shout out to my mom. She's my backbone, my best friend, and has helped me down through all the ups and downs of chasing this dream and even with everything that I'm doing now. And also my brother and all my family members who have really kind of been there to support me through thick and thin. So, like I said, appreciate the opportunity, grateful to be here, and hopefully provided some value for the audience as well.
I think you definitely did that. For anybody who is listening to the podcast and not watching the live stream, you can follow Malcolm on Twitter at Malcolm Lemmons. That's at MalcolmLemmons. So follow Malcolm on Twitter at Malcolm Lemmons. Malcolm, you're pretty active on all the social media platforms. People can pretty much find you anywhere, right?
Yeah, please hit me up. I'm accessible. I try to get back to everybody in a timely manner. So yeah, I'm on every social media platform.
I love it. And you're available for speaking engagements if people want to bring you in to speak?
Yeah, it depends on the timing as I'm, trying to build this company. But yeah, definitely hit me up and we can try to make something happen.
I love it. And one more time, let's recap those 2 books and let people know how they can order them.
You can get Lessons from the Game and Impact Beyond the Game on Amazon. That's probably the best place.
Thank you so much, Malcolm. I want to say thank you for joining us today. My name is Kayla Bradham, host of Legacy After the Locker Room, powered by Sports Philanthropy Network, here today with our guest, professional basketball player, mental health expert, author of 2 books, Malcolm Lemmons. Malcolm, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kayla. Appreciate it.
And we are here to remind you to live your legacy. Thanks, Malcolm.